Hey there, Mercedes here from PrettyWebz.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this warm and fuzzy holiday text effect. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, I'm starting off with a 1000 pixel by 500 pixel document, 1000 pixel wide by 500 pixel length, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my guides in really quickly. The first thing that we're going to do is set up our background. I have my colors already set. These are going to be the colors for my background as well as the actual text effect itself. So let me go ahead and give you those. I have a foreground color of 9B, 2E, 2F. And I have a background color of 811415. Again, I'll be using these colors for both the text effect and for the background. So I'm going to come over to my gradient tool right here, and I have my gradient set to foreground background. This is my very first gradient in my default gradients, and I'm using the radio gradient normal mode, opacity 100%. Everything else is fine. I'm going to start off at the center, and I'm going to drag this out to one corner. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add a pattern adjustment layer. So I'm going to choose pattern down here. And the pattern that I'm going to use is this one right here. It's a stripe pattern called Crisp Paper Ruffles. And I'll leave a link down in the description just in case you want to grab this for yourself. I'm going to scale this down to about 20%. So I want really thin, almost corrugated looking lines. For this, I'm going to click OK. For the pattern, I'm going to go ahead and change the blend mode to soft light. So now that we have our background set up, we'll go ahead and move on to the text. I'm going to come over to my text tool, and I'm going to bring up the text or the character panel here. All right, I just want to show you the settings for the text that we're going to be using. I'm using a script called Lust Script. Regular. The size for this is going to be 260 pixels, and I do want a little bit of space between the letters, so I'm going to set the tracking to 40. Everything else is fine. Our color is set to our foreground color here. So that is 9B, 2E, 2F. Now we're going to just click anywhere on the screen, and we're going to type out our word. So the word that we're using is Santa. Hopefully you can see this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn these off so that you can see the lettering a little bit better, because it's really difficult to see with the background turned on. So I went ahead and added a white layer here, and I'm going to press the letter T on my keyboard. I'm going to change some of the glyphs for some of the letters. So this letter N, I'm just going to add this swoosh at the bottom right there, and then for the letter A, I'm gonna use this one right here. I want it to be a little bit longer because I'm gonna add a little Santa hat to the end of the A. So actually this long tail right here is gonna work out pretty well for that. So that's pretty much it for the lettering itself. We can turn these back on, press the Command key on my keyboard, Command or Control, and when you get that little square come up, you can just click, and that's going to make a selection of your text layer. I'm going to add a new layer on top of this right here with this selection and these two colors. So make sure that your foreground color and your background color are still set to those same red colors. And then we're going to come over to Filter, Render, Clouds, and then Filter, Noise, Add noise. And we're going to change this amount to about 15%. Distribution is Gaussian, and make sure that monochromatic is checked off. Go ahead and click OK for that. Command D to deselect that. So this is what you have at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my guides really quickly. Okay, so we have the base text. We're going to go ahead and add some layer styles to it. So I just double clicked here on the far right side to bring up my layer styles, and I'm going to start with a bevel and emboss. So for the bevel and emboss, we're starting with inner bevel. Technique is smooth, your depth 100%, direction up, size 30 pixels. Our angle is 120, altitude 30. We're using a linear gloss contour. Highlight mode is screen, and we're using basic white, FFF, FFF. Click OK. Opacity for this is 75%, shadow mode multiply, and for the shadow we're using D8, D8, D8. This is somewhere between gray and white. We'll click OK. Make sure that the opacity is at 75% and we're good there. All right, let's go ahead and add a contour. For our contour, we're using this half round right here. And our range is 70% for that. Next, we're going to add a texture. So for the texture, I'm actually using the Legacy Patterns and More. I'm here in Legacy Patterns, and I'm using grayscale paper, and I'm using this one right here specifically. This is called craft paper. I have the scale down to 50% and my depth at 50%. All right, then I'm going to move over to inner shadow. For the inner shadow, my blend mode is normal. My color is B5, B5, B5. Opacity 60%, angle 120. Distance and choke are 0, size is 10 pixels, and we are using a linear contour here as well. All right, next we're going to go ahead and add a drop shadow. For the drop shadow, our blend mode is linear mode. Our color is 2D0303. Opacity 60%, angle 120, distance 12, speed 0, size 16. We're using linear contour here. We'll go ahead and click OK. All right, next we're going to go ahead and add another layer on top of this, and we're going to press the Option key or Alt key on the keyboard and then just hover between the two layers. When you see that little square, you click, and that's going to clip this blank layer into our text layer. I'm going to label this. Okay, so this is our base text right here. This you can actually turn off. We don't even need that anymore. And then we're going to add another texture. So we can easily just take a soft round or hard round brush and just kind of dot around. I do have this brush right here. It's called Dotty Texture. This is by Creators Couture. She makes some amazing brushes. If you're interested in digital art and things like that, definitely check her out. She makes tons of brushes. This happens to be one of my favorites. So I'm going to be using that Dotty Texture brush. My size is set to 90, and I'm going to go ahead and reset my colors. Put the white on the top, and then I'm just going to go ahead and brush on that Dotty Texture. Isn't that awesome? I love this brush. Okay, now let's come over back to this dots layer. I'm going to press the Command or Control key and then click just to select that. So we're going to start working on our fur here in a minute, but I'm going to use those same colors for these dots. So for the foreground color, I'm going to be using CD, CD, CD. Click OK. So it's like a somewhere between gray and white. And for our background color, we're going to be using F3, F3, F3. So this is almost white, but not quite there. We'll click OK. With these dots selected, not just the layer, you have to actually have a selection of this in order to make this work properly. So just make sure your layer is selected, Command or Control, and click. That way you actually see these marching ants here. So we're going to come up to Filter, Render, Clouds, and then back up to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. We'll bump this up to 25. We'll click OK. You can bring it up really high if you want something glittery. I'm going to press Command D just to deselect that. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and take the opacity down to about 60%. And I'm going to go ahead and change the mode to screen. That's pretty much it for our text. We're going to start working on the fringe of this. So we're going to add another layer to the top, and this is going to be our trim. Before we get started with the trim layer, we actually have to set the brush up. So we're going to come over back to the brushes, and I'm going to come over to Legacy Brushes, and I'm going to be working with default brushes. We're going to come over to the Dune Grass brush, and we're going to make a few changes to that brush. So we'll come over here to the basic settings for this, and we're going to drop the size down to 10 pixels and our spacing to 1%. We're going to come over to shape dynamics. Size jitter we'll bring all the way up to 100% in our control to pen pressure. Minimum diameter 0, angle jitter 0. Our control is going to be direction for this. Now that's because I want all of my fur to be going in one direction. So if you want your fur to look a little more messy, you can just leave your controls off. And I'm going to take the roundness jitter to 0. I'm going to uncheck scattering, uncheck transfer. Let's come into color dynamics and we'll change our foreground background jitter all the way up to 100%. We'll change that to pen pressure. Make sure that our hue jitter is all the way down and everything else is at 0%. You can check smoothing if you are going to be doing some free drawing with this. I always just keep that on anyway. All right, so now that we have all of those settings, we can come over here and just save a new brush preset if you like. We're going to come over to the text, Command or Control on the keyboard. We just need to make a selection of that text one more time. We're going to come back to that trim layer, and then we're going to come over to paths. So window, paths. We're going to choose this one right here. This is make a work path from the selection. So now we have this work path here. I'm going to go ahead and close that. We're still on that trim layer. We have our brush set up. We have our foreground background colors set up. So now all we have to do is come over to the pen tool, right click on any part of that path, click stroke. Our tool is going to be brush, and we want to make sure that simulate pressure is not checked. Click OK. It was very subtle, but we did get that line there. So I'm going to press the letter B on the keyboard and then hit return about 5 more times. Okay, so it's very small. We are at 10 pixels right now. We're going to take it up to 15 pixels and do it 5 more times. Take it up to 20 pixels. We'll hit it 5 more times. And now we're taking it up to 25. And we've got it 5 more times at 25. And you can make this even more fuzzy if you want. Depends on the style that you're going for. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it as it is. I'm going to come back to my paths and click anywhere outside of that work path to remove it from the screen. So I have this hat right here that I used. I'm going to right click, duplicate this group, and put it into our new document that we're working in. So when I come back in here, I have my little hat. So for this little hat, the reason I pre-made it and didn't make it for the video itself is because it's basically all the same stuff you've already learned. So I do want to take it apart though and show you the different parts of this. So I'm going to turn all of these layers off. So this right here looks like a little gumdrop. I actually made that shape with the polygon tool. I have 3 sides on my polygon, and I made sure that I checked smooth corners. And then on this layer I added my textures, just like we did with the Santa, the base Santa. I made a trim for his hat, so here at the bottom, and I used the round rectangle tool to do that. Now for this trim, you can see it does have somewhat of a bevel on it. All of the settings that I used for this are actually these same settings that we use for the base text, so you can easily just copy these and paste them up here. I went ahead and added the trim to this lower section right here. I did this exactly the same way that we did all of this trim. We have a little circle up here, and then I just added the palm fuzz to that as well. All right, so I've got the hat. I'm going to press Command and the letter E. I just wanted to show you all of the different pieces that went into this, because even if you're not an artist and you don't know how to draw, you can easily create things just by building up on shapes and things like that. All right, so now that I've merged all of those layers, I'm going to press Command T on my keyboard. I'm going to go ahead and click on this right here to warp that a little bit. I just want it to look like it's actually fitting on top of that A. And now I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of it. So Option on the keyboard and then just drag it down. I'm going to double click over on the far right hand side, add a drop shadow here. So our blend mode is linear burn. The shadow is color is 2D0303, angle 120, distance 12, size 16, and we're using a linear contour. I'm going to click OK. We're going to go ahead and add a layer mask to that. I'm going to just remove the shadow in some of those sections. Before I move any further, I'm going to go ahead and take the fill down to 0. That way we have our hat on one layer and we have our shadow on another layer. So I'm going to turn that hat layer off. I'm going to click on the layer mask, hit the letter B on the keyboard, and I'm just going to be choosing a soft round brush from my default brushes. I'm going to take out the shadow right around these areas where it would actually be right on top. And you can still see the shadow, but when we put the hat on, you're not going to see that anymore. If you liked this video and found it helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Visit PrettyWebz.com for more design resources for your blog and business. Until next time, thanks for watching.